This week on Film Lush, we'll be talking about On the Waterfront.
1954 film about murder, betrayal, and redemption on 1950s New York waterfront. So welcome to Film Lush. So tonight we're watching 1954 Warner Brothers Studio, Elia Kazan's On the Waterfront. I'll have to go ahead and just say it's probably, I can't call a movie like my favorite movie because it's impossible to do.
That's a word.
But I'll put it in the top 10. I don't know where in the top 10, but I'll have to say it's in the top 10.
I've seen it a bunch of times, and in rewatching it for this, I felt so conflicted watching it, knowing the historical context
Right.
of it, because I don't know, I wasn't alive then. I don't know what the real...
Me either.
the real, what the real climate was like, but it's hard in the way that we've been taught historically about the McCarthy trials, about the blacklist. And those who named names are not history's heroes.
No, they're not. As a matter of fact, Kazan lost a lot of his contacts in Hollywood for actually naming names during the trials. Another reason why they think On the Waterfront is so important to Kazan is because it is a story of betrayal. It is a story of redemption. It is a story of being ostracized from your peers.
And I think there's a level of, I think the one thing that kind of redeems it for me, not just being him going, oh, poor me, I ratted out my friends, is there is a sense of guilt to it.
There is a sense of guilt to it.
There's a conflicted feeling.
And as I understand it, it wasn't something he wanted to do. It was something he was sort of pressured to do. He originally refused to do it.
Right.
He claims that he gave 8 names from a actors group that he was okay, so Elia Kazan was briefly in the Communist Party.
Right, which a lot of people were at that
He was
time.
also, of course, in some sort of actors group as he kind of actually started on Broadway and was in some sort of actors group. I believe they had something to do with that sort of like more improvisational acting, more like method acting.
Right, like
and
the Actors Studio.
Yes, the Actors Studio, which he founded with someone else, but
Stella Adler?
maybe that's it. I think that sounds right.
I think it's Stella Adler.
But so there were several people in his acting group, this is previous to the Actors Studio, that were also in the Communist Party who he named. Kazan claims that they were known to be members of the Communist Party, that he wasn't actually divulging new information.
In court, we could go on and debate this. And for those of you who didn't watch the movie or don't know the context, we'll start talking about the movie scene to scene. And we'll get to a point where, you really should watch the movie, and just because it's a great film. But also, if you don't want spoilers, there's going to be some spoilers.
They're coming.
Just, spoilers.
So if it's a movie you're interested in, you should stop now and go watch the movie and then check back in with us afterwards and join the discussion. Another really interesting thing actually about Kazan's testimony and losing friends in Hollywood was this project originally began between Elia Kazan and Arthur Miller. Arthur Miller, of course, was he even wrote the Crucible,
about it,
about the trials. So he was not down.
A totally different take on it, a totally different perspective than Elia Kazan's.
But Joy, who is Eva Marie Saint's brother, has been talking to this sort of like Waterfront Crime Commission. And it's revealed that he is planning on ratting out some of the things that are going on.
You could say he named names.
And so what they want Terry to do is they want to lure him to the roof of the building. And so Joy also raises pigeons, and so Brando's like at the bottom, and he's like, hey, I got one of your birds, or something like that. And
Boys.
And he says, I'll meet you up on the roof. And he's like, oh, okay. But he does say something about...
He says that he's like, I got to watch out these days.
Yeah, I got to watch out these days. He goes, well, I'll just meet you up on the roof. And then the shot kind of pans out. Brando's walking away, and you see 2 henchmen looming on the roof.
Looking very, very...
ominous.
Yeah.
And the next thing we see, of course, is... you have Father Barry who shows up to do, you were raised Catholic to some extent. What is it called? Like last rites?
Last rites, yes.
So Father Barry shows up to give Joy his last rites.
And you know this because he puts on the sash.
He does put on the sash
around
because
collar.
there's no drag like Catholic drag. There's sort of a team up. I kept trying to picture the Edie Doyle and Father Barry like crime fighting show. Like, because there's sort of a team up between her. From that point on, there is a connection with her and Father Barry.
Oh, yeah.
Where we're going to find out what happens. She did really move, Edie Doyle really did move Father Barry into wanting to take action. He said something about being in the church, and she's like, my brother is dead, and you talk about time and faith. Or something to that effect.
Like you're talking about these abstract
ideas, and my brother is laying here dead.
And then not doing anything.
Yes, and you're not really doing anything.
It's not real life.
That's not real life. And so it does get him moving, and like I said, at that point, they're sort of like the crime-fighting team of Doyle and Barry.
Dun, dun, dun! What's the guy? I don't remember the character's name, but the one guy who's like, we sticking our necks out, and you're here in the church. Ba-ba-doo-ba-doo. And Father Doyle. See, champagne's kicking in. Father Barry, one half of the Barry and Doyle crime fighting team, is trying to prove that he's on the up and up. And the guy's like, "Are you straight? Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to stick my neck out, and you're not going to be there till the end." Da-da-da. And he goes, "I'm in it till the end, but gotta smoke. Can I bum one?" And that's when the guy's face totally changes and is like, huh, yeah.
It's like
all right, you're cool.
I can relate to this.
You smoke.
I can relate to
trust
this.
You.
Okay. I'm ready to talk about a movie. Here's moral support.
Yay.
So everyone's down in the hole. And the hole being sort of the loading dock of a longshoreman. And the pallet has fallen on Dugan. Dugan, who we now know.
Figured out his name.
Dugan is the name of the guy who's willing to turn evidence on the
Pivotal
mob.
character.
He wants Father Barry to, back him up. Is he in it? Is he in it? But now Dugan has been murdered, basically, by the mob.
But it looks like an accident.
It's like an accident. A pallet of Irish whiskey has fallen on top of Dugan.
Get a doctor! He don't need a doctor, he needs a priest.
So Father Barry has had it. I mean, he's really had it. He's made this vow with Dugan that he is with him. If he'll testify, he's going to see what he can do to stop what's going on the waterfront. And here's Dugan dead, on the docks. And so he gives this really great speech. I'm sure this speech is the reason why he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. It's a fantastic speech.
Some people think the crucifixion only took place on Calvary. They better wise up. Taking Joey Doyle's life to stop him from testifying is a crucifixion. And dropping a sling on K.O. Dugan because he was ready to spill his guts tomorrow, that's a crucifixion. And every time the mob puts the crusher on a good man, tries to stop him from doing his duty as a citizen, it's a crucifixion. And anybody who sits around and lets it happen, keeps silent about something he knows has happened, shares the guilt of it just as much as the Roman soldier who pierced the flesh of our Lord to see if he was dead.
Come back to your church, Father!
Boys, this is my church. And only you with God's help have the power to knock him out for good. Amen.
You can tell that this is the point also, though, where Terry Malloy really starts to get it. He really starts to
and I think
the weight of it
this,
starts
he
to
has
come down on.
willfully turned a blind eye.
Willfully turned a blind
To
eye.
if I don't acknowledge these effects of the things I'm doing, then
I'm not
a
doing
bad
it.
guy.
I'm not doing it. There's the scene on the rooftop before even Maurice Saint comes and brings
Or he talks
his
about throwing a
jacket. And the crime commission guys up
Right.
there.
He's like, I saw that fight. I saw he kind of knocked you out quick. And he's like, I was carrying him for 3 rounds.
We were dancing. And you find out that, he threw a fight so the mob could win a bet, basically. Right. And so they're in the car and he's offering him a job, basically, a cushy job with lots of money not to go and to court against Johnny Friendly and the mob. And so they're in the car, and
I'm telling you, I haven't made up my mind yet.
Well, make up your mind before we get to 437 River Street.
Before we get to where, Charlie? Before we get to where?
Listen to me, Terry. Take the job. Just take it. No questions. Take it. Terry, take this job, please.
but the thing that keeps this from being just a mob movie scene is what Brando does. Is he just pushes it away.
Well, and that's when he turns the tables.
Yeah.
Because he, instead of being frightened or indignant, he has pity.
Oh, Charlie.
It's a broken love story between brothers.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's-
I think that's a great way to put it.
It's a broken love story between brothers.
It could have been another Billy Kahn. That skunk we got you for the manager. He brought you along too fast.
It wasn't him, Charlie. It was you. You remember that night in the garden? You came down my dressing room and said, "Kid, this ain't your night. We're going for the price on Wilson." You remember that? This ain't your night. My night. I could have taken Wilson apart. So what happens? He gets the title shot outdoors in a ballpark, and what do I get? A one-way ticket to Palookaville. You was my brother, Charlie. You should have looked out for me a little bit. You should have taken care of me just a little bit so I wouldn't have to take them dives for the short-end money.
Well, I had some bets down for you. You saw some money.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. Instead of a bum, which is what I am. Let's face it.
Rod Steiger just
Yeah,
deflates and he's like, just get out. I'll say I couldn't find you.
I said I couldn't find you.
And then, of course, which I thought right before this, I was like, I'm sure the driver is going to tell somebody.
Right,
and then the
right.
driver, it's a close-up on his face.
Yeah.
And they swerve into this garage, and it doesn't look good for
It doesn't
Charlie.
look good at all for Charlie. And this is an interesting too that you can see it through the whole movie. So he goes running out. Of course, he tells Eva Marie to stay there, but Edie is.
If we've learned anything, Edie never
Edie
stays there.
Edie is going to go where the action is, and so she of course follows him out. And this is an interesting thing. So this was shot on location all over Hoboken, New Jersey. That's where they shot the whole movie, and it was frigidly cold when they
Oh, I
shot
bet.
it. And so Kazan wanted it to be cold because he thought it changed the look of the actors' faces and expressions.
Made him more tense.
Yes, made them more tense. And so, but that scene you can really tell the cold. So the truck of course drives by, and they come out, and there's
Charlie.
poor Charlie. He's dead. And that's when he decides he's going to show up at the waterfront.
Yeah,
he's
like-
going to show up and try to get a job. He's going to show up and try to work the next day.
Like, this was over the line for him. He
Yeah.
was ready to kind of hide away and just...
But that was it. That was
just
it.
like, this isn't right.
And so he shows up to work, and they're like, everybody works except for Terry.
Except Terry.
Yeah, except Terry. And Terry's just not. He's had it.
You think you got almighty, but you know what you are?
Come on!
You're a cheap, lousy, dirty, stinking mug. And I'm glad what I've done to you. You hear that? I'm glad what I've done.
They start fighting.
They start fighting, and
Because really, at the beginning, it's like, well, this is a no-brainer.
right,
Terry's
he's a
gonna
prize
kill him.
fighter.
Yeah, and Johnny is old.
Until the rest of the group joins.
And
in.
then everybody else. And there was a funny part, though, when they're in the back of the union. So the fight kind of goes to the back of the union.
right in on the
house.
water.
Right on the water, kind of out of sight of the rest of the dock workers. There's one, like, Edward G. Robinson
Yes,
guy
yes.
with his cigar that's like,
Yeah.
"Wrangle!" And it's like, you're not good. What the fuck are you going to do?
Yeah, but they beat the shit out.
They beat the shit out of
beat
Terry.
the shit out of Terry. Of course, Edie and Father Doyle.
Well, the dynamic duo of Doyle and Edie are there.
Doyle and Barry.
Doyle and Barry.
Doyle and Barry. The dynamic duo of Doyle and Barry, of course, show up.
Are right there in the thick of it.
My feet. You're on your feet. I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Terry?
You can. Just finish what you started. You can. All right, let's go to work.
And I like to think that after this, Doyle and Barry went off to fight more crime.
Crime across America. We're defending Irish people everywhere. Was that a good Irish accent? I don't even know.
Not really, but I liked it.
You know, subscribe, follow us on things, people, places, nouns, us.
Yeah.
Until next time, empty glasses. And cheers. Thanks a lot.